Welcome to the video, folks, and thanks for watching. This is your host, The Crane Man, and I'll be moving this content down the line for you. Episode 5 of That's Right will explore the collapsing corporate media narrative concerning the efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccines and the health fascism that has resulted from the peddling of their false narrative. Let's get it flowing. We begin by examining Peter Sweden's tweet, which says, "Are people really getting arrested for trying to eat at restaurants in New York without showing their papers? I didn't know the USA had turned to a fascist country." For a little context, we'll explore the crime rate in New York City. TheDailyMail.com says, "The Rotten Apple. Latest New York City crime statistics show shootings are still double what they were 2 years ago, with murders up by 50%. New York City Police Department data shows shootings are still double what they were 2 years, and murders are up by 50%. As of December 5th, New York City has recorded 1,470 shootings and 443 murders. New York Police Department Commissioner Dermot Shea has repeatedly blamed bail reform laws for the spike in violent crime in recent years. Some have noted that the unemployment levels in the city remain more than double pre-pandemic levels when discussing the rise in violent crime. 13 cities across the U.S. have shattered their annual murder records in 2021. Incoming New York City Mayor Eric Adams has appointed Keechant Sewell, 49, to take over Shea's position as top cop, becoming the first black woman elected. For a little context, this is where their crime is at. But we'll see that their police are not too worried about the 50% increase in murders from 2 years ago. We're more worried about those trying to eat at Burger King without their papers.
Come on! Are you guys gonna Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you!
You can hear at the end of that clip the people telling the cops that what they're doing is shameful, and they're correct. Let's step it up a bit and harass children, shall we?
You just basically saying that you can't serve, otherwise if you're not going to pay for it, you know, you have the card. I know, but you don't have it, then you're going to have to leave. And if not, you right now. No, just had a minute. You're not going to stay here.
That's right, even your children need papers now, or the New York police will be invading the restaurant you're sitting in attempting to get a meal and telling you you have to get out. Ignore the 50% increase in murder rate. We are very worried about children eating in an Applebee's. That's much more dangerous to the community. Clifton Duncan exposes some progressive COVIDianism, as he labels it. He tweets, "In a single tweet, David Pakman masterfully captures the classist contempt and callous ignorance that characterizes bourgeois progressive COVIDianism." David Pakman had tweeted, "Why do all the anti-vaxxers / anti-maskers get themselves arrested at Applebee's and Burger King? Never any serious restaurants. What does it all mean?" That's right. David Pakman knows that the restaurants you're getting yourself arrested in, they aren't serious. Come on. Who even does this stuff? Clifton takes them apart more because Pakman, of course, has to go on. I'm assuming in reply to what Clifton had stated here, Pakman tweets, "I love how triggered right-wingers get whenever I tweet something like this. Applebee's isn't even a cheap restaurant. Many of their entrees are $18. This is not about economics. This is cultural. Backpedal, backpedal, backpedal." However, Clifton Duncan has a great reply for him. He tweets, "I love how pointing out progressive contempt for poor and working people makes one right wing. And it is cultural, David. It's a culture you'll never understand because you're too busy sneering down at commoners from your ivory tower." That's about right. That is about right. Not a serious restaurant. Fauci says the U.S. should seriously consider vaccine requirements for domestic flights. That's right. You cannot fly without showing your papers. Fauci says we should at least consider that situation. We all know why. Christopher Nunn points out something that should be obvious. He tweets, "When vaccinated people gloat about being able to go to a restaurant, they are delusional. A basic right they had previously is now granted to them at the mercy of the government." Of course, we have a defender of the position that people should be medically segregated. Ian says, "Eating out has never been a basic right. It has always been a convenience. A convenience that is, yes, subject to government regulation, licensing, inspection, employment standards, taxation, bylaw, capacity limits, even age restriction in some cases." But he's not really understanding the point of this tweet. This tweet is saying if they took it away from people for one reason, what's to stop them from taking it away from you next? And if you defend their position as they're taking it away from one group of people, you could almost guarantee, being you're a useful idiot, as the commies like to call you, that you'll be next. But for your sake, I hope not, Ian. Well, we know why they're doing this, right? All this moralizing around the vaccine is because it stops people from getting COVID. You can hear them say that in the clips. But here we'll start with Rachel Maddow on MSNBC on March 29th of 2021.
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person.
See, that's why you have to get vaccinated, because it stops with every single vaccinated person. I wonder if anyone else repeated that. Let's have a look at these clips.
You're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
These vaccines are highly, highly effective.
Vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick.
They're really, really good against variants.
Everyone who takes the vaccine is not just protecting themselves, but reducing their transmission to other people. And
so you can see the claims they were making. Well, now we move on to Clay Travis's tweet. He says 95% of NFL players, 97% of NBA players, and nearly 100% of NHL players are vaccinated. Yet, all three sports leagues continue to set all-time COVID case highs. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt Biden's claim that if everyone was vaccinated, COVID would go away is a lie. Fair point, Clay. But how dare you question the progressive agenda's talking points like that? Now, we all know that some of the fallout of this was terrible for people's economic situation, and Megyn Kelly points that out in her tweet. And how many people were fired over this lie, too, including cops, firefighters, and first responders who got us through the pandemic. When are they getting their jobs back? That's right. They lied and told us that the vaccine stopped COVID. People didn't carry it and couldn't get it if they were vaccinated. That has been proven objectively to be a lie. Are we going to be giving back people their jobs because they were fired on false premises? It's a great question from Megyn Kelly. Now we move on to the moralizing end of this. If the jabs don't stop transmission, who are they supposedly saving by taking it? Great question, Trader Joe. And then goes to speak to their moralizing of this, blaming people for a disease instead of the disease. Reed Cooley tweets, "You are being conditioned to live in isolation and look at your fellow human beings as a threat and unclean. It's time to wake up." I agree, Reed. I agree completely. That's why all the lies. That's why they made false claims about the efficacy of the medicine they were widely touting to the American public. Because they have an agenda. They don't tell you the truth. They aren't looking out for you. It's very clear. They are lying to you. Walter Kern takes it little bit more aggressively. He tweets, after they made off with all the money thanks to their monstrously profitable emergency, after all the new billionaires were minted and the countless small businesses were liquidated, and after all the other wreckage they caused, they'd like to make a deal, a truce. Now that's funny. Right? How many small businesses destroyed? How many small business owners were arrested trying to operate their businesses under the archaic lockdown mandates that we now know did nothing and could have done nothing? For a little bit of exploration of how the narrative has changed, since it's very clear that Omicron ignores your vaccination status and still infects you regardless, we have a couple images tweeted by Christina. Biden tells DeSantis to, quote, get out of the way amid COVID surge. This was written by Gary Fineout on August 3rd of 2021. In the next image, we see Biden departs to Delaware Beach House after telling governors there is, quote, no federal solution on COVID and it should be, quote, solved at the state level. This tweet was posted on the 27th of December, 2021. For a second example, we'll show images of Biden when he was on the campaign, tweeting, I am alarmed by the surge in reported COVID-19 infections, hospitalizations, and fatalities. This crisis demands a robust and immediate federal response, which has been woefully lacking. But then again, on December 27th, Joe Biden says, there is no federal solution. This gets solved at a state level. Which one's correct? Here we have a clip where CNN, of all people, admits that cloth masks do not stop COVID. And Jack Poso says, we are in the turn, meaning the narrative about this is about to change because it's become so bloody obvious that everything they were saying was factually untrue.
Cloth masks are not appropriate for this pandemic. It's not appropriate for Omicron. It was not appropriate for Delta, Alpha, or any of the previous variants either, because we're dealing with something that's airborne.
Don't tell all the people that drive around in their cars by themselves with a mask on. You might shatter their fragile little world. Now we look at a little bit of the fallout and how it's being perceived. You take these arrests that we watched here and here, and we move on to Blair White, who tweets, when showing an ID to vote is racist, but showing proof of a medical procedure to buy a coffee is normal, you know the world has lost its mind. Wait, what? You mean they're the left's position that you need to show medical procedure proof to buy a coffee is contradictory to their position of needing to show an ID to vote being racist? I wonder how people feel about that. Well, here we can listen to how Joe Rogan feels about it.
And contradictory things, too. This is where it gets really weird. Like, voter ID is racist. It's racist to require someone to have a voter ID to register to vote. But you have to have an ID because you need to have a vaccination. So in order to use any facilities, you need to be vaccinated. And if you're going to be vaccinated, I need to have an ID, and you have to have a vax card, and that's okay. But that is like, if you want to think of what's racist and not racist, if you look at the statistics, there's a large percentage of African Americans that are not vaccinated.
Yeah. Clearly we know who this is aimed at. It's just veiled. And again, that's right, that, they hold the position simultaneously that you should have to show proof of medical procedure, but it's racist to have to show an ID to vote. And they don't seem to understand that those things are contradictory, or at least they could care less. Perhaps pointing out these hypocrisies will aid these people in getting out from underneath the I'm not sure what you want to call it, that the media has perpetrated on them. The state of fear and lack of rationality. Thank you for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want more blue-collar commentary from the Rust Belt. Connect to Old Foundry Media socials at the links presented on the screen now. Hope to see you next time.